Okay, I'm Brian Marick, and this is something of an idiosyncratic report on the open space we just had, which was broadly on the topic of why doesn't acceptance test-driven design work when conventional test-driven design seems to work just fine. So the one difference between acceptance test-driven design and conventional unit testing is that both the value and the effort of the work is dispersed. That is, in conventional unit test-driven design, generally speaking, you have a programmer who's doing the work and gets rather immediate value from that work, and you iterate on. In acceptance test-driven design, you have more people involved. You have programmers, you might have BAs, business analysts, you might have testers, you have all sorts of scads of business people, and those people all do a different little piece of the work. They get a different little piece of the benefit, and quite often you could fall into a situation where the person doing a lot of the work doesn't get a lot of the benefit, which makes the whole system fragile and subject to falling apart, which is one reason why it might not work. Now, the thing that most interested me is when somebody who I can't see mentioned that the important part, an important part of conventional test-driven design is that it provides a cadence to your work, the standard red, green refractor, red, green refractor rhythm to doing that kind of work. And it does not appear to be the case that acceptance test-driven design has that sort of rhythm. And that's a problem because it alienates the programmers from that work. And so one thing we might do to fix this problem is find some particular way in which acceptance test-driven design causes a rhythm to the work. And one of the things that came up at the very last bit that I thought was very interesting and going to recast is that especially when you get testers or business analysts involved in a project, you can have a situation where they produce a 3,000 column Excel spreadsheet or fit table that entirely and unambiguously and in the most compact form possible captures everything required about the problem to be solved, and they dump that onto the programmer who is sort of helpless in the face of all this complexity. And it occurs to me I've seen that a lot. And there's a substantial problem about being overwhelmed by detail in the relationship between the business people and the programmers. And it occurs to me that one solution to the problem of acceptance test-driven design is to treat it as explicitly a learning experience where someone is trying to teach the programmers enough about the domain that they can create a system that is tuned to that domain and allows them to solve problems in that domain easily. And I think that if you did that, you would approach testing very differently, because you do not teach people by dumping a pile of Excel spreadsheets on them. You teach them in a slow, simple example to more complex example, branching off and looking at special cases, et cetera, approach. So I think what I would recommend is recasting acceptance test-driven design as a technique for teaching programmers, and that might be an interesting way to look at it.
You done?
Yeah.